we learn better together. We grow together. That I had a mentor tell me a long time ago, all business is a people business. Yes. It doesn't matter if you're the sales guy, if you're the janitor, if you're the CEO, you have to work with and through people. And the faster that you build trust, the faster you move forward with once you build that trust. So
absolutely, no question.
We break bread, we have a drink, we talk over war stories. That's how we grow as humans. Like that's just the way that it works.
No question about
100%.
it.
You're listening to Protect It All, where Aaron Crow expands the conversation beyond just OT, delving into the interconnected worlds of IT and OT cybersecurity. Get ready for essential strategies and insights. Here's your host, Aaron Crow.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of Protect It All podcast. Man, I love getting in these conversations. I get the opportunity to meet people, that I've spoken to and I've known for years, but also new people that I've never met. And we do a little bit of prep call right in before this, and I can always just tell the energy of the conversation. So I'm really excited about this one. So Jim, thank you for joining me today, sir. And why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, a little bit about you.
Hi, Aaron. I'm Jim Sortino. I'm the CRO and a board member for the U.S. entity for ISARA Corporation.
Okay.
Been in the industry for 20 plus years. CISSP, marketed over 33 different technologies into the marketplace. 3 exits. Yeah. And so, coming into ISARA, which is a brand new market, which is this whole idea of quantum readiness. It's came on board about 1.5 years ago. So I'm very excited.
So the funny thing is, everybody, I just got back from RSA. We were talking about RSA before because you live in that area. Everything at RSA was AI. Right. Everything had AI bolted on. That's all they talked about. And then there's some people the last couple of years that I've seen quantum this, quantum that. People are starting to talk about it more. It's such a big thing that people are not necessarily grasping it. How does this impact me? How do I do anything about it? Give us the elevator pitch. Like I told you before, my audience is everywhere from a student to a C-suite. What is quantum? Why should we care? How does it impact us? What do we do about it? Give us the elevator pitch of it.
Yeah. So let's step back a second, right? With cryptography in general, right? When I ask you, Aaron, I would ask you, how long has encryption been around? Do you know the tech stack hasn't really changed much for 24 years? Now, could you imagine an ADR company not changing their product for 24 years or a Sembra? I mean, it'd be unheard of, right? Yeah. But in reality, yes, there's been some changes. Organizations are looking at 24 years of technology debt. And so when you look at this, there's basically 3 areas, there's 3 facts. The first fact is 85% of CISOs and security people don't have a quantum readiness strategy. And that's understandable because it's brand new, right?
Yeah.
More importantly, 50% of the certificate of organizations have certificates that are self-signed, rogue, or invalid. And the most alarming is 30% of the organization's infrastructure, and I'm talking worldwide, is still using deprecated protocols, weak algorithms, and broken modes of transportation. Now, in the last 2 elements, did I say anything about quantum? This is about current risk, right? So the elevator, if you want me to give you the elevator pitch on ISARA, basically, we have an autonomous cryptographic posture management solution that does 3 things. It addresses your crypto agility. It helps with quantum readiness, but it also provides architectural validation to address your current risk as well as your future risk. And I'll get into architectural validation in a little bit if need be, but it's really about the communication protocol. What's my servers accepting? What are my servers using from a protocol, from a cipher suite standpoint? So we basically create an enterprise-wide inventory of all your crypto primitives, the protocols, the keys, the certificates in the cloud, in the network, down to the database level, your applications that you're developing, your files, folders, and libraries, and also, very important, third-party access. Right? Being able to go in there and seeing what are they connected. You'd be amazed, Aaron, how many security companies are connected to enterprises that are using TLS 1.0, 1.1. And it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. And now we're a responsible shop. So I will tell the security vendor, I'll go to the CISO and say, this is what you're using, just to let you know. And there's one company that really went and changed it like within 24 hours, but most of them, we don't hear back. But we're a responsible shop, so that's what we do. I don't know if that was too long-winded, but that's
it's great. And it just goes to show, and I have these conversations so often, and many times security is not like to enhance security. I usually have to start with just the basics, right? It's usually not sexy, right? To your point, like all of that you talked about, like only this much of it, 5%, 10%, whatever was actually quantum. The rest of it was just basic. It was technical debt. We're still using TLS 1.0 because we built the product 100 years ago and and it's too difficult to go back in and change that. I self-signed that certificate, and Bob that designed that part of the product is no longer here and nobody else knows how it functions. So we just keep it working because it's too difficult to go crowbar that thing out to make it work again. And that's the type of thing that, we see this all the time as SBOMs have gotten released and we really truly understand what's going on in our products. And we have to have a better understanding both in our contract terms and language as we bring in third party, as we bring in vendors, as we bring in products, but also especially now with AI and so many folks are developing their own products and use cases and capabilities in-house. These are all things that they need to consider. There needs to be a standard around how they're going to produce this thing and where it's going to touch and who owns it and what is that minimum baseline of things, right?
No, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. There's this false sense of security. When I talk to organizations around the world, oh no, we got encrypted. We're encrypted. We're fine. We're great. Well, yeah, I know you are. It's been 24 years. I mean, I would hope so, right? But what encryption methodology are you using? What protocols are you using? What's the cipher suites that support that? And that's what these organizations don't realize. So I think a lot of people focus on what we do and say, oh, quantum readiness, that's 10 years out. It really isn't 10 years out. But think about your current risk, because there's exploits happening right now with the current encryption methodologies, with your modes of operation that we're seeing. And that number's not unrealistic, that 30% of the infrastructure, because we can see that and we show that to customers. And they're shocked, and shocked for the right reasons. I mean, they're assuming everything is good. Oh, I'm using TLS protocol. Great. Well, which one? And so that's what really needs to happen. This false sense of security that just because you're encrypted, oh, but I've got GRC products, right? And I got that. Well, yeah, they'll tell you if you're encrypted, that's about the extent of it. Or they'll say these vulnerability management tools that are fabulous out there. They're great. But they're not looking at 571 crypto primitives and not going through that extent. That's not what they were built to do. They're looking at CVEs and those types of things, right? We're going down much deeper into the cipher suites, the certificates, the keys across the enterprise, right?
Well, it's the foundation that everything is built on. Like everything is a software product now. Everything is, even hardware companies have software built in them. My car has, freaking software and operating system, CAN bus, all that kind of stuff. Like you can't get around it. And how many people understand end to end that protection and how that thing is layered on top of each other and where all those interdependencies are and where, as we know, it's the old tale of a chain's only as strong as its weakest link. So you can have every place using the latest encryption and all the things, but you've got one little dependency that's buried down deep in that thing that is TLS 1.0 self-signed and is expired. And the whole thing crumbles down around it.
Yep, absolutely. I've gone to organizations where we put our product in 2 hours. We're looking at 100,000 plain text protocol connections. Why? And many of them will say, well, PCI DSS basically says we have to have everything encrypted outside, but inside our firewalls, we don't have to. Really? Is that really where you want to be in that? You've got to protect that. inside as well. So it's a little bit of a learning experience. And that's why we have no CISO dinners, right? To educate the market on what's going on, not to do any product pitch, not to do any of this. It's really to educate.
So how are you seeing the response from that? Are people's eyes opening? Are they angry about it? Are they frustrated? Or is it something that they knew? Obviously, I'm sure it's kind of a mix of all of those things, but what is the bigger outliers, the things that stand out to you from those?
From the CISO dinners specifically?
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's having their peers talk about things that they're thinking about, but they're not sure if everybody else is thinking about the same way. I think that most of them really, truly realize what's happening. If I were to consolidate it into 3 areas, banks in general, look at quantum 2 years down the road. That's how they're looking at it. Government agencies looking at it 3 years down the road. Everybody else thinks it's a 10-year deal. They got plenty of time, and they don't, right? Google just announced 2029. Let's look at it. For RSA and ECC algorithms to be broken, you need 500,000 qubits. Right now, we're at 20 million. IBM and these other companies have had 20 million qubits, and they brought it down to 1 million qubits. That's a 20-fold decrease in a very short period of time. When do you think they're going to get to 500,000 qubits? 6 months? A year?
Right. Yeah.
And this isn't something you can take and say, oh, well, yeah, it's far off. I can wait. This is a project that's going to take at least 2 years to develop, to really move this technology down. Now, if you're a big financial organization like Visa, I was talking to somebody from Visa and they said, listen, we've got 1,000 analysts here. We have the money. We got the resources. We can do this thing in a year. I'm sure that's not everybody. And so it's going to take a 2 to 3 year project, and they need to start now.
Well, and like we said, we already are talking about so many programs and products and things that are already technical debt of the past 20 years that you've never fixed, and you've band-aided or pretended it wasn't there, or maybe you didn't even know it was there. Now we're talking about something that you can't do that anymore, right? It's the same as with Mythos and AI and vulnerabilities. Patching doesn't fix you anymore, right? It's not enough to kick that can down the road. So are you gonna disconnect from the internet? That only removes one attack vector. Like this is exponentially changing the way that we do business and how we protect our business from these attacks, and how high on that risk register these risks actually register, as opposed to, it's fear fear selling FUD, to what as you start seeing things drop off because people are attacked and hit and impacted, it's going to be more and more commonplace. Unfortunately, it's going to be the right of bang instead of left of bang after something happens and reacting to that.
And you make a good point, Aaron, in terms of threats, right? And I kind of wanted to talk about this whole idea is harvest now, decrypt later. You've heard it. Everybody's heard it. I don't think the enterprise market should even be worried about harvest now, decrypt later. I know that's completely the antithesis of what every marketing person is saying in these vendors, right? Let's take a look at harvest now, decrypt later and what's got to take place. The harvest now, decrypt later will require them to not steal your data. Okay, fine. Then they've got to decrypt file by file. Let's say it's 3 years from now, quantum comes out. Let's just draw a line in the sand there. 3 years now. So now I'm going to go down and look at every single file. And now I got to determine, is this 3-year-old data sensitive anymore? It kind of reminds me of that movie, and you'll probably know the Dirty Harry movies. And I wish I had this line right on the back. Remember, he had that Magnum singing. He said, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" That's the kind of scenario. You're going to have to be really lucky to find that. What I contend is, forget harvest now, decrypt later. Look at trust now, forge later attacks. I argue that quantum risk will threaten the integrity of our trusted systems, right? Once these large machines come out, right, they're going to be able, not just be able to read old data, but you're going to be able to forge signatures, impersonate trusted services, undermine the authenticity of software, identities, and the transactions that enterprises rely on. Harvest now, decrypt later is a slow burn. They got to go through. The trusted now forged later attacks, you really attack current and future trust. And let's face it, the digital signatures are the root of our form of trust, right? And so Q day one, right, is going to be, okay, I've stolen these digital signatures. Now I can decrypt it. Now I can start using them day one versus sifting through thousands of files trying to find that needle in the haystack. This is what organizations need to be worried about.
Sure. No, I agree. Like the biggest thing, the data side, obviously the CIA and all the government side of the reason they're trying to keep protected information, that kind of thing. The product for Coke, the recipe, things like that. There are certain things that are valuable, IP, that kind of thing. But most of the point, to your point, the biggest impact is going to be now, because what my customer information was 2 years ago doesn't exactly matter to me. It's going to be that how do I do this encryption now? How am I trusting? How am I authenticating into this system? How am I allowing people to authenticate into me? How do people trust, and how do you verify? Like that, it's always supposed to be trust but verify. Once they have that quantum and I've broken the encryption model, how do I verify that Aaron is Aaron? Now we know we have AI, we have deep fakes, and now I've broken the digital side of that trust as well. How do I validate that Aaron is who he says he is and he's not some bad actor that's just trying to take over Aaron's account?
That's exactly right. Right. And they're going to do this with impunity, right? There's going to be no way to know that Aaron is Aaron when you have a forged digital signature.
Right.
That's what people need to be worried about. Forget the harvest-now-decrypt-later. I'm not saying it's not an attack. It's just,
sure,
it's marketing hype. I'm not into marketing hype. I'm into reality and what's really most important. So that's.
Well, I can see China wanting to go after US's, whatever, our secret widgets that we are inventing or whatever, and our undercover agents and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a play for it for sure. They're going to want to release dirt on us and have political capital. Like all of those things are real. But to your point, for a corporation, it's more important than now. Not that the other stuff doesn't matter, because sure, of course it matters, but not to the same level of now. Like you're going to have multiple things burning. It's the analogy I give in the OT world. I've got two devices and they both have the same CVE score, right? They're the same risk to the device itself. They run the same firmware. They're the same type of product. One is controlling the ice machine in the break room. The other one's controlling the turbine on the power plant. Which one's more risky to my business? Like, right. The ice machine goes down, you got warm water. Like, the turbine goes down, there's no electricity. Like, those are two different risks to my business. Absolutely. But the CVE score is the same. Like,
yeah. Yeah, the CVE scores don't really matter in the whole realm of cryptography. It doesn't really relate to it at all.
So how are you seeing people? We talked about how they're starting to see it and have the conversations, realizing that, hey, this is real. It's coming. It's not, I don't have 10 years necessarily. But what is the impact? Like, how are people starting to prepare for this?
Yeah.
How are they starting to, obviously, again, I've got all this technical data, especially if I'm a big company, Visa or any of these big companies, you name the company, insert here. They've got this stuff spread out everywhere. How can they get a grasp on it to understand what to do and how to start fixing those things before it's too late?
Yeah. And you got to start with a plan. But how do you get to that plan, right? And you start with a plan by, you can't fix what you can't see. So you got to start with discovery. You got to be able to discover all of your particular assets, right? And then from there, you're going to it needs to assess the strength of those. And then the third part is the prioritization. Now, prioritization comes into a unique play here because prioritization really requires someone to go in and say, I want to look at my most critical applications and I want to see the communication posture to those critical apps. I want to see what those workloads are emanating out into the marketplace. And I want to have a complete heat map in terms of where that's the prioritization. We're not trying to boil the ocean here. Let's focus the enterprise on what's our most critical asset. But the bottom line is, there might be 10,000 servers or 5,000 servers that are really critical. and what's going to and from those particular assets. That's what we really need to uncover going forward here, and being able to really prioritize. So now once you got the prioritization, now you're going to have the plan of, here's the most critical assets. Here's what you're using. Here's why it's an issue. And here's how to remediate it. And now you've got the plan. And that's where people really need to start. They need to start with the plan. Don't worry about remediation yet. That's the second phase of the scenario. You've got to start with the discovery, right? Because there's so many blind spots.
It's no different than how we approach any problem, right? It's how I implemented firewalls, how I do segmentation, how I did, whatever disaster recovery, whatever insert reasoning here. You have to start with, where am I? Where do I need to get to? What are the hurdles that are going to be between here and there? And then it's a people, process, and technology, right? It's not just buying a product, right? Products are great. You're going to need some products, but you also need people to implement, and you need a process that they're going to follow. Who's going to implement it? Who's going to own it after the fact? How are you going to maintain it? Some of the things may be too old. Am I going to rebuild? Am I going to accept risk and put something in a corner and isolate it? It's not just going to be a clear A plus B equals C. It's going to be this jagged line, like all projects are, of, we thought we were going here and now we're going here, and it's up and down and left and right, and making those adjustments along the way. But we can't put our heads in the sand and think it's not coming.
No, you can't. And I can't emphasize enough. It's not just about quantum. It's current risk, right? It's current risk. One of the biggest culprits I've seen in enterprises all the time is there's a mode of operation, right? That's a procedure to use to block cipher suites, to encrypt messages larger than a single block, right? And it's important, right? The CBC mode, they use CBC mode all the time. That's broken. It's been deprecated, right? And so you have two forms of attacks. You got bit flipping attacks and you got Oracle padding attacks. They can get into your network pretty quickly. Someone can get in there, but they still use it. And they're like, no, we're using GCM, but no, you're still using CBC. And consequently, you're now going down, a downgrade attack, you're going to be able to get into the network. So you're allowing it. You got to stop that. Those are the kinds of things that, listen, analysts in the enterprise network, I feel bad for them. They've got, the typical enterprise has 10,000 alerts a day, of which they can manage the best ones, about 4,000. So that's a 60% delta, right? Yeah.
And you're just, that's a big snowball that's getting out of control ahead of you that you can never catch up with.
So it's not about creating this, and people want to talk about one other thing, which is, C bombs, right? Everybody talks, how do you have a C bomb? Right? I'm like, okay, so you have a list of all your cryptography, right? And it's a snapshot of one time. Well, I'm on them. Okay. What you going to do with that? Right? Why are we as the industry yet again imposing more work on our enterprises by giving them lots of noise that's irrelevant?
Sure.
To a degree, right?
Sure.
Now, there's some cases for CBOM. I get it, right? There's some value to it. But is that, I start seeing RFPs saying, we want a CBOM. You want to know what's in use and what's at rest at your key management systems, at your database side. But you don't need to have just a laundry list of everything that you have. You want to take a look at prioritize. I always try to say to my customers, focus, right? Focus, right? It's too big, right? Focus on making those little steps, right? They always say like goal management, right? You start with little steps, you achieve little steps. It makes you feel gratified, right? And that's what I always try to say, even with my deployment team. Take the little steps, we deploy, show the customer what they've got, help them remediate, and then move forward in that, right? It's the little steps that will get you to the ultimate goal, right? Not trying to boil the ocean all at one time.
Get some quick wins. That means a lot, right? Getting those quick wins, seeing some progress, knocking some things off the board. The factor of just walking up to the board and marking through it and, high-fiving, hey, we did this, right? There's a lot to that. And it's beyond just, it's not trivial, right? right? It really matters to start making progress, see that you're making progress. It's Dave Ramsey and debt snowballs and all the things. Like, it's the same mental idea around it. It's no different, right? And we know we have all this debt. We've got all these old antiquated systems. We've got all this stuff that we have to fix. And we know this, you're never done. Like, we're never done. You're never secure. It's never like, okay, hang up the keys. We're done. Go home. Like, no more security requirements. No more analysts. Turn the logs off. We're all good. We've protected everything. We've plugged every hole. We've solved every problem. The attackers can never get to us. We're secure. Like that. It's just, it never is going to happen ever. Never.
No, that's exactly right. And you always try to make it easier. Make it easy for you to take it in steps, right? Because it's too overwhelming to look at everything as a whole, right?
Yeah. So what are you seeing from a budgetary perspective that folks are with boards, with CISOs? Like, how are they starting to see and quantify? Because everything, when we talk about any of these risks, it all comes down to business risk. How are businesses starting to see and justify this as part of their plan and their roadmaps? You talked about some folks putting it in 3 years. You talked about others 2 and others at 10. Like, how are you starting to see businesses start to quantify this risk in their roadmap?
Yeah, I think from a quantification, I think it's really more of they know it's a necessity that they need to basically, especially the financial services order, they realize it's a necessity. They're going to need to budget. They need to budget now for these types of events. They cannot wait. Their integrity is on the line at this point. I mean, let's face it. When you look at encryption, if you look at all security tools in general, what's really the most important? Encryption.
Sure.
Data, right?
Yeah.
And that's what everybody's trying to, and so if that's weak, then there's a problem. So I see that. I see from the board perspective, this is a new market. So it's really just starting to come into shape. I talked about this with you, Aaron, before the show started, right? When I came on board to ISARA, we had 7 companies hitting our website on a monthly basis. Now we were setting the world on fire, right? Now we almost have 2,000. Right? And that's just a year and a half later, right? So there is this groundswell of, yeah. And then you also have Gartner and Forrester, and you've got Google, and you've got IBM, and all these companies basically hammering their fist saying, you've got to start now. Look at the mandates that have just come out with our federal government. Department of War memorandum starting to go off. The OMB issued mandates. What do they say in those mandates? You must start a discovery of your inventory by October of 2026. Discovery, not boil the ocean, not get everything remediated. Start your discovery. Get this underway. And that's great that what President Trump has done in terms of really pushing that mandate and his administration in doing that. Right? Yeah. It's
as we said, we can't, it's so frequent. We see this, and you name the vertical, you name the problem, but we put our head in the sand. We've done this for 40 years. We've never had a problem with it. We've never had a problem, whatever the insert excuse here. And we just continue to redline that thing as long as we can until the engine's not going to blow. We're good until we blow the engine, right? And I don't want to be standing there holding the bag when that happens. So
right.
The smarter organizations are going to be forward thinking. Luckily, a lot of the financial side, I think, to your point, I think they understand their reputation and their risk. Their entire business is aligned with this. If they don't do this, they're going to get left behind and out of work. I'm more concerned on those mid caps, the ones that are not, they don't think they're as involved or it's as needed for them. Those are the ones that I'm most concerned. Like you said, I'm sure Visa will take care of it. I'm sure American Express, I'm sure Chase and Citi and then all of the big names and the big companies will do those things. But what about the credit union around the corner? What about all the little guys that don't have thousands of analysts? They don't have big budgets for these things. They may not have as much awareness on this. And there's just not as much minutia around cyber and all these kind of things, even though they necessarily should be. But as there's no regulation forcing them to do something, they're going to have a hard time finding the budget to get it done, even if they wanted to.
Yeah. And that really comes down to the vendor basically doing a pricing model where we look at it based on per server. So a credit union's got far less servers than a Visa, right?
That's right.
Just slightly. Right? But I want to get back to another point because I just talked about the United States, right? And what that administration is doing. But Canada is really leading this charge. But know who's really going after this charge? Probably the number one market for us is Europe because of the DORA regulations. Yep. They are way ahead of the United States. If I were to look at it, Europe and the Middle East are I think farther ahead than the United States is. And that's the first time in my career. It's always been North America is dominated, right? It's always that case, right? Not here. Not here. Europe's been thinking about this last year and probably even before that, right? I talked to people in Brazil and in Nigeria who have been thinking about this in 2024. I'm like, wow, they have been very forward thinking when it comes to PQC and going through this. The second biggest market then is Canada, doing a great job of that. That administration is doing a great job of really imposing it. Asia, third. Do you know US is number 4 in terms of the market?
It doesn't surprise me, honestly. I just got back from DEF CON Singapore.
I'm surprised the heck out of me, right? You're thinking everything is in here, right? But it isn't. They are really actively pursuing this and putting budgets toward that. Not to say that we're not, but US, a little bit behind on that.
Yeah.
We're going to get there, right? They've got the things, but it's just very interesting for us to say that Europe is absolutely number 1 and Middle East number 1 in terms of really going after this market.
Well, this is just a great example of a way in a place that regulation really helps. It helps justify, it helps push, it helps boards understand the risk and the needs. And it takes that, we don't want to do this, or it's not optional. Like, you have to do this. And it helps to justify the costs, the work, the resources, the people, process, and technology around these things, instead of a debate or a dialogue around, well, is it really needed in our business? And do we have to do it everywhere? And, that hemming and hawing that you get sometimes in those boards, which for right reasons, they're making the right financial decisions, or they're trying to make the right financial decisions for their entity. But sometimes there's things that they probably don't understand and that need to be, you can't. I remember a very, very side note. I did a control system at a power plant, and this was, 15 years ago. And this was at the beginning, before anybody called anything OT. And we were rolling out, and it was around NERCSIP, which is a compliance around, OT stuff in power regulation side here in the States. And we were sitting there with the vendor, and the vendor presented a proposal to do the control system upgrade at this power plant, multi-million-dollar thing, right? And they gave us 2 options. And it was literally the top of the proposal, the secure option or the insecure option. And the insecure option, well, obviously was cheaper because it didn't have any of the security tools and things like that. And the plant manager was sitting there looking at it. He's like, I think I'll go with the insecure model. And I'm like, yeah, you can't do that. He's like, what do you mean? Well, you can't choose that one, right? And the reason behind it, obviously there was this compliance regulation that was behind me. And I'm like, it's not me. It's not like you can't yell at me. I'm just telling you that's not an option. You cannot choose that option, because then you're going to get way more than that in fines and regulation and shutting down the power plant and all that kind of stuff. And then I had a conversation with the vendor after that. I'm like, why do you even have an insecure option? Like, even if there is an option with no security, you shouldn't call it the insecure option.
That's true. Perfect.
It's just the ways of the time that, hopefully
it certainly is.
It's the same as folks that have TLS, 1.0, or they've got self-signed certificates, and they've got things that have been, no expiration dates on them. And they've been in there since the 90s. Those things exist. I've seen them in these places in really important critical systems, and they are securing our environment using those things. So we see all this awesome, we see GUIs and all the things that it's doing, but it's actually, the crux of it comes down to a token that's perpetually signed and self-signed, and is TLS 1.0 and is, 128K encryption. I mean, it's just like, what the hell is going on? But they don't realize, obviously they're not advertising. It's not on the front page of their website of being a feature of their product.
More importantly, it's somewhat complex, and they can't know everything, right?
Sure.
These guys have got a hard job, right? They've got so many other things that they're worrying about on a daily basis. Like, I was talking to one bank and I think they said they had 7,000 attacks a day. Attacks a day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's mind-boggling, right? And so I completely understand where they're coming from. On the other hand, right, we're not trying to sit there and say you're bad if you have TLS 1.0 in there, because a custom application that they've developed, maybe it's a legacy, maybe can't support 1.2, 1.3. As long as you've got the compensating controls associated, you're good, right? You get that. But at least we want to give that visibility. Is this a potential issue? If it isn't, you have the ability to ignore it and say, we're good there, and we move on. So then the solution will reprioritize what assets that you need to address first. But it's that visibility, at least having that knowledge of what's going on is really, I think, very important to enterprise accounts.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the analogy I give on that is like I've got Fort Knox on my front door. It's a steel door. It's got and then my back door is a screen door. It's like it's only as secure as its weakest link. So and to your point, now maybe I've got a dog and I've got monitors and I've got an armed guard sitting inside and all those kind of things. I can't change the door, but I've put other mitigating controls around those things to protect it. And that's to your point. You need to at least understand that it's there so that you can protect it, right? Maybe I can't change the door itself, but that doesn't mean I can't secure it. So what do you see next? Obviously, it's a shorter time. I used to say 5 to 10 years on this question. This is my rapid question I ask everybody. I used to say 5 to 10 years, but things are changing so fast. I've kept the years out. What is one thing you see that's concerning that's coming up that we've got to fix? It's probably quantum or AI. And what's one thing that's exciting that you're optimistic about coming up?
I think myopically speaking, really, it would have to say the biggest risk that I see here going forward is the people thinking this is a 5 or 10 year plan going out. Yeah. I think they're going to be sadly mistaken, and they're going to be way behind the 8 ball especially when it comes to trust now, forge later attacks. I think that's going to be a big problem. Now, we always talked about the year, Y2K issue. This is going to be way more significant than that.
Yeah.
And the positive side of it, worldwide, the market is really trying to embrace this whole quantum readiness. I have people in Belgium that want to talk to the Canadian government to see what they do. So there's a lot of collaboration going on amongst different countries. Yeah. And I think they see the need for this. And they did. And quite frankly, the other thing that's exciting, when we talk to a CISO, we're not talking to them about the typical security tools. This is something new to them. This is something that they've got to sit there, embrace and go, yeah, this is interesting. I can learn from this. And hence the reason why, we do these IT and security dinner events where there's no product pitch. It's all about just an idea of collaboration between peers of what they're going to do from a quantum readiness, crypto agility standpoint, those types of things.
We learn better together. We grow together. I had a mentor tell me a long time ago, all business is a people business. Yes. It doesn't matter if you're the sales guy, if you're the janitor, if you're the CEO, you have to work with and through people. And the faster that you build trust, the faster you move forward with once you build that trust. So
absolutely, no question.
We break bread, we have a drink, we talk over war stories. That's how we grow as humans. Like that's just the way that it works.
No question about 100%. It. Yeah.
So what's your call to action? How do people find you, find out more, get invited to the CISO dinners, and where are they going to be? Like, what's the catch?
No catch. No, it's ISARA.com, ISARA.com. When you go in there and these executive roundtables, like I said, we're going to be in Austin on this Tuesday, May 12th. Then we're going to be in Washington, D.C. during the Gartner Risk and Security Summit on June the 2nd. Then I'm going to set plans I'm doing a European tour in September, right? I'm going to be going to Zurich. I'm going to be going to London. I'm going to be going to Munich, doing that because that's a hotbed there. But we're going to be doing things during the summer as well. So we're going to be hitting Seattle. We've got to hit the Denver area, but we've already been to Boston, New York, Philly. No, we haven't been to Philly yet. Boston, New York, Tampa, Dallas, right? Palo Alto, Orange County. So we've been out to a lot of these so far. But again, we're going to do 19 tours. Come out and really visit us at ISARA.com. Take a look at, what we have and what the challenges that we're addressing in the marketplace, right? And that's that whole idea of the automation, prioritization, and really the communication protocol, not only internally, but also externally to third-party vendors. Really key point that we address. So.
Outstanding. Yeah, it sounds great. Definitely check out their website, check out when it's coming to your town, or maybe even reach out to Jim and say, hey, I think you should have one in our town. And I've got some folks that would be interested in having that conversation.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Would love to do
awesome,
that.
Jim. Dude, I appreciate the time and the opportunity today. Thank you for sharing with us. And it was a great conversation.
I really enjoyed it a lot. And I want you to come to our dinner on Tuesday.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. I'll be there, sir.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on Protect It All, where we explore the crossroads of IT and OT cybersecurity. Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to stay ahead in this ever-evolving field. Until next time.